Happy Wednesday, Potassium. Welcome back to Story Time. My goodness, I can't believe we only have 2 books left. I really hope you've enjoyed these past 2 books. Again, it really makes me remember my class and think about all that time we've spent together. And the one we're going to read today is no different. It's called The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lessmore. It's a book about stories, particularly books, and so what this one for me is just kind of how I see your children. They're stories too. They have a story to tell, right? They're going places. And so let's just go ahead and read it, okay? I really like this one. The class really enjoyed reading it. So let's get started. All right. The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lessmore, written by William Joyce and illustrated by William Joyce and Joe Bluhm. Morris Lessmore loved stories. He loved words. He loved books. His life was a book of his own writing, one orderly page after another. He would open it every morning and write of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew, and everything that he hoped for. Let me get a little closer here. But every story has its subsets. One day the sky darkened. The winds blew and blew. My goodness. Till everything Morris knew was scattered. Even the words of his book. He didn't know what to do or which way to go, so he began to wander and wander. Poor Morris. He lost everything. Then a happy bit of happenstance came his way. Rather than looking down, as had become his habit, Morris Lessmore looked up. Drifting through the sky above him, Morris saw a lovely lady. She was being pulled along by a festive squadron of flying books. How cool. Morris wondered if his book could fly, but it couldn't. It would only fall to the ground with a depressing thud. The flying lady knew Morris simply needed a good story, so she sent him her favorite. The book was an amiable fellow and urged Morris to follow him. It's a story of what? What is that? Humpty Dumpty, yeah. The book led him to an extraordinary building where many books apparently nested. And as we're reading here, just pay attention to kind of what Morris looks like, how he starts to change. This is something that we always paid attention to in class, and the kids really picked up on it. Morris slowly walked inside and discovered the most mysterious and inviting room he had ever seen. It was filled with the fluttering of countless pages, and Morris could hear the faint chatter of 1,000 different stories, as if each book was whispering an invitation to adventure. How cool. I would love to find a place like that. Then his new friend flew up to him and landed on his arm. It held itself open, as if hoping to be read. The room rustled to life. So Morris's life among the books began. Morris tried to keep the books in some sort of order, but they always mixed themselves up. The tragedies needed cheering up and would visit with the comedies. The encyclopedias, weary and tired of facts, would relax with the comic books and fictions. All in all, it was an agreeable jumble. Morris found great satisfaction in caring for the books, gently fixing those with fragile bindings and unfolding the dog-eared pages of others. Sometimes Morris would become so lost in the book and scarcely emerge for days. That's why I love reading so much. Just go places. And he's still there, reading and reading. Morris liked to share the books with others. Sometimes it was a favorite that everyone loved, and other times he found a lonely little volume whose tale was seldom told. Everyone's story matters, said Morris, and all the books agreed. I do too. And let's see what's happening to the people here when they're getting a book from Morris. Yeah, they're changing color, right? They're getting colorful. At night, after all the stories that needed telling had been told, and everyone had settled down to their proper places on the shelves, the great big dictionary would get in the last word. It was then that Morris Lessmore would once again write in his own book. He wrote of his joys and sorrows, of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. The days passed, and so did the months. And then years and years. And Morris Lessmore became stooped and crinkly. But the books never changed. Their stories stayed the same. Now his old friends took care of him the way he had once cared for them. And they read themselves to him each night. Then one day, he filled the last page of his book. He looked up and said with a bittersweet sigh, I guess it's time for me to move on. The books were sorry, but they understood. Morris put on his hat and took his cane as he went to the door. He turned and smiled and then waved goodbye. I'll carry you all in here, he said, and pointed to his heart. The books waved their pages, and Morris Lessmore flew away. And as he flew, he changed back to the way he'd been that long ago day when they had all first met. The books were quiet for a while. Then they noticed that Morris Lessmore had left something behind. It's his book, said his oldest friend. Inside was Morris's story, all of his joys and sorrows, all that he knew, and everything he hoped for. Then the books heard a small, expectant sound. There, in the doorway, was a little girl. She looked around with wonder, and then something fantastic happened. Morris Lessmore's book flew up to her and opened its pages. The girl began to read, and so our story ends as it began, with the opening of a book. Yeah. And so, just like in the story, now it's time for, someone else to care for children, for their stories. And so it was just a pleasure, being a part of it. And so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.